we are discussing types of asexual reproduction, wherein we learned fission, in that we have learned binary fission and multiple fission, and now we will learn the next type of asexual reproduction, that is fragmentation. Fragmentation is seen in simple multicellular organisms. Students, remember that we have learned fission, binary fission, and multiple fission that we learned in unicellular organism, in single celled organism. And now we are learning for multicellular organisms. Fragmentation is seen in simple type of multicellular organisms. It is not for complex multicellular organism. Okay, it is for simple multicellular organisms. For that, we have example of Spirogyra. And in standard 9 we learned that Spirogyra is a green algae. In multicellular organism with relatively simple body organization, simple reproductive methods can work. So here, as I said, this fragmentation is for simple multicellular organism, which means they have simple body organization. So let us see fragmentation for Spirogyra. It simply breaks up into smaller pieces upon maturation, which means when there is maturation in Spirogyra, simply it will breaks up into smaller pieces. Now remember that fragmentation is done on its own. Please keep this in mind. Fragmentation is done on its own. When? At the time of maturation. When the cells are matured, there will be fragmentation. So, as I said, simply it breaks up into smaller pieces. As first part of the image shows us the cell, and then simply it is divided into fragment 1, 2, and 3. Means small pieces. 3 pieces it has, and then gradually that grows more and it grows further. So this is fragmentation. In simple words, remember that fragmentation is used by simple multicellular organisms, which means the multicellular organisms which have simple body organization. And in this process, the cells simply breaks up into smaller pieces upon maturation. Example is what? Example is Spirogyra. Here also the fragments of fragmentation process in Spirogyra are shown. As I said, fragmentation is used in simple multicellular organism, which means it will not be used for all multicellular organisms. All other multicellular organisms cannot simply divide cell by cell. The reason is that many multicellular organisms are not simply a random collection of cells. Okay, are they random collection of cells? No, because we know that there are specialized tissue, and as we have learned that there are specialized cells which make up tissue, tissues make up organ, and organs make up organism. And all the specialized tissues have proper definite places, positions in the body. So, in such a carefully organized situation, cell by cell division will not work. It will be totally impracticable, because here simply the cells are not collected and made an organism. There are different cells for different purposes. they make tissues, and tissues make organs. So all have their special work to perform, their special role to perform. So here, simple cell by cell division will not work. That is why fragmentation is not useful for all types of multicellular organism. Fragmentation is there for multicellular organism who have simple body organization. And this is the reason that multicellular organisms need to use more complex ways of reproduction because their body is complex and they have specialized cells. That is why they need more complex way of reproduction. A basic strategy is used in multicellular organisms. Which is that strategy? And that is that the different cell types perform different specialized functions that we all know. And following this general pattern, reproduction in multicellular organisms is also the function of specific cell type. How is the reproduction to be achieved from a single cell type? If the organism itself is consist of many cell types, as I mentioned that there are many cells and they are specialized, they have different work to do, then how is it possible that there is a single cell type which can carry the reproduction? And what it is? The answer is that there must be a single cell type in the organism that is capable of growing, proliferating. What does that mean by proliferating? Increases in number of cells by cell division or cell growth. We say that the organisms multiply, means increases. So there must be a single cell type in the organism that it is capable of growing, proliferating, and making other cell types under the right circumstances. And what it is, that we will learn when we see the reproduction in plants and human beings. So we know that there are specialized cell, reproductive cell, which is responsible for cell division, cell growth. Now let us talk about regeneration. Many fully differentiated organisms have the ability to give rise to new individual organisms from their body parts. That is, if the individual is somehow cut or broken into many pieces, many of these pieces grow into separate individuals. For example, simple animals like Hydra and Planaria can be cut into any number of pieces, and each piece grows into a complete organism. This is known as regeneration. So, this is the next type of asexual reproduction, which is regeneration. Now, here, what happens? That we will study this by taking example of planaria. So here, what is happening? In this, it can be cut into any number of pieces, and each piece grows into complete organism. That is regeneration. And these type of organisms have ability to give rise to new individuals from their body parts. So here, if it is somehow cut or broken into many pieces, then each piece will grow as new organism. Here, do not be confused between fragmentation and regeneration. What is fragmentation? Fragmentation is that all the cells breaks up into smaller pieces upon maturation. And remember students, I have said you that fragmentation is done on its own. Okay, that is fragmentation. It breaks or cut into smaller pieces on its own. Whereas what happens in regeneration? In regeneration, it does not happen on its own. It happens accidentally. Okay, it is an accidental process. Somehow it is cut or somehow it is broken, then regeneration happens. Okay, students, so that is the difference between fragmentation and regeneration. In fragmentation, it is done on its own. The cell divides into small pieces when at the time of maturation. Here in regeneration, it is not happen on its own. It is an accidental process. Somehow it is cut or broken. Then each individual will grow. Let us study this by taking an example of planaria. In planaria, the body can be cut into any number of pieces, and each piece will grow into a new organism. And this process is known as regeneration. Here in the picture, we can clearly see. First, there is a planaria, and somehow it is cut into pieces. See the next second step, it is cut, somehow broken. Then that all three pieces are separated. See the third step. And then in the fourth step, all these three pieces will start growing as new organism. And in the last step, there will be complete planarian organism. Okay, so this is how regeneration is done in planaria. As I said you that the body of planaria can be cut or broken somehow. It is not done its own. Somehow it is cut or broken, then that many number of pieces will start growing, and at last it will be a complete organism, and this is known as regeneration. Regeneration is carried out by specialized cell. And what are the specialized cell? They are regenerative cells. Okay, please remember this. What are the specialized cell for regeneration? They are regenerative cells. What do these cells do? These regenerative cells proliferate and make large number of cells. As we know that proliferate means to make the more individuals, to increase the number of cells. So this regenerating cells will multiply the number of cells, and from this mass of cells, different cells undergo changes to become various cell types and tissues. And these changes take place in an organized sequence. Somehow it is not done that it is made immediately the new organism is formed. It is not like that. Okay, it is done in sequence so that the development is shown. However, regeneration is not the same as reproduction, since most organisms would not normally depend on being cut up to be able to reproduce. All other organisms do not use regeneration to reproduce. Why? Because all the other organisms cannot wait to be cut themselves or to be broken themselves, and then they can make new individuals. So all other organisms do not use this regeneration. In the end, let me tell you again that fragmentation is the process in which the cells simply break up into smaller pieces upon maturation. It is done on its own. On the other hand, in regeneration, the body of the individual organism is somehow cut or broken into many pieces, and these pieces grow into separate individuals. It is not done on its own, it is an accidental process. Somehow it is done. So, this is about regeneration.